school day to Christmas morning.
Hey, on Christmas morning they get gifts. On a school day I get the gift of peace and quiet.
If you're done, we can get started.
Proceed. All right, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, and welcome back to the Chloe Nash podcast, where we highlight what it's like to be a Christian married couple in the 2020s. It's not always perfect, but we're always authentic. Isn't that right, Chloe?
Yeah, that's right, Nash, but I think even our imperfections are perfect.
Yeah. Well, it's been a bumpy couple of years, and our listeners have been along for the ride. We've been through, what, a major recession, a global shutdown.
2 years of Zoom meetings.
Yeah, and even though we don't always see eye to eye on everything, I think that we're still going strong. I mean, thankfully, we don't have to depend on our own strength.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that. We've gotten quite a lot of feedback lately on how we've been sounding a little tense with each other.
Yeah, well, if you've been with us for a while, you've sensed that I get in a bit of a funk around Christmas. I mean, I'm surprised, though. I thought I hit it really well.
You don't.
Okay, well, to be fair, it's been a difficult year. I mean, we've been canceled by half of our friends and family over the tiniest, divisive, petty little
he gets
things.
pretty
It's
triggered about
unbelievable. Well,
this.
it's like we just can't do anything right in their eyes. I mean, just the other day, my grandmother blocked me on all social media platforms.
Oh.
Yeah. This is my gentle, sweet Nana that we're talking about, Chloe.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day after that, her dog blocked me on Instagram.
Oh, no, you got canceled by Coco? You got to make that right, Nash.
Listen, Chloe, everybody's got their line, and mine is apologizing to a dog. Even if she's got more followers than I do.
Well, Nana's forgiven you at least.
True. And you know what? I'm just glad that the family is having a magical Christmas season. I mean, Chloe has really outdone herself with all of these Christmas traditions.
Oh, Nash! That's really unusually sweet of you.
Yeah. Sometimes I think you do too much.
Oh, all right. There it is. Round one. Let's go.
No. We're not gonna argue. I don't know. I just guess I can't get into the Christmas spirit. I don't know what it is. I mean, you make it look easy. You really do. I guess I'm just
A complainer. Yeah,
I guess.
a Grinch. A Scrooge.
Oh, okay. All right. They get it. It's just, do we have to max out our credit cards every single year?
Well, I'll admit it can get a little out of control.
A little. Last year you insisted that we give our Amazon guy a fully wrapped present.
And you should have seen his face on the ring camera when he opened it. The man was delighted.
Okay. Then you had to post it.
Where it brought several dozens of people lots of joy.
Listen, all I'm saying is that not everybody has delightful, joyful memories around this time of year. Some of us just feel a little bummed out.
Let's unpack that.
Okay.
I know it feels terrible to be ghosted, but do you think that it might have something to do with,
Nope. Sorry, Chloe, not tonight. Tonight's not going to be another hour-long feeling sesh. We got something else planned.
Oh, you're right. We took a vote. And by popular demand, tonight's Christmas show is a 1930s radio play, the Dickens classic, A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, and personally, I wanted to do something a little bit more contemporary. I mean, what could we possibly have in common with the 1930s? That was like 100 years ago.
Yeah, people were struggling then and people are struggling now. Inflation is up, the cost of goods is high, the value of the dollar is low. People needed some hope then and we need some hope now. Especially you. They think you hate Christmas.
What? They don't think I hate Christmas. Do they think I hate Christmas?
Yeah, they think you hate Christmas.
Guys, I don't hate Christmas.
Well,
Come on.
You know, I know you don't, but we just don't want you to be so down when it's supposed to be such a happy time.
I appreciate it. I do, but I'm fine, really.
I think this is going to be fun. Let's get into it.
All right, here we go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in with us on this beautiful, wintry Christmas Eve. While the snow is gently falling, carolers are singing, and Christmas lights are twinkling. Here on WJBC Radio Coast to Coast, we have a very special show for you this evening. It's a Christmas classic that's a tradition in many of your homes all across the good old US of A. But first, a short message from our sponsors.
Millicent, have you seen the price of round steak? 49 cents a pound, my giddy aunt.
If you can even buy it. Because of rationing, my hungry family hasn't had a piece of meat in nearly a week.
And yet, you and Bill and the children have all got such a healthy glow. How do you do it?
Thank heavens for Rendies.
Friends, Rendies is 100% pure animal fat. Rendered from the finest livestock and packed fresh for you in convenient 5 and 10 pound tins. When you can't get cuts of fresh meat, Rendies is the grand source of the animal protein your family needs for energy to keep going all day. Just scoop and blend into any meal. Rendies goes with vegetables, mixes into Christmas pies and cakes. Use it on freshly baked bread in place of butter. Rendies is the swell way to get the vital energy your family needs. A real health food. So why not do as thousands have done and ask your grocer for Rendies?
There's more to a cow than just the meat.
And remember,
Don't call it grease, don't call it lard. Rendies to your table, straight from the barnyard.
There's more to the cow than just the meat.
now it's time to hang your stockings, finish trimming your tree, and get those last-minute gifts wrapped while we bring, for your listening pleasure, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens.
Marley was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that.
This is a Christmas play?
I don't mean to say that I know what is particularly dead about a doornail, but I would state that old Marley was as dead as a doornail.
Okay, buddy, we get it. The guy is dead.
Immediately, you are killing the vibe.
Fine.
Scrooge and Marley had been partners of a money-lending firm. Scrooge never bothered to paint over Marley's name on the door, so the firm was known as Scrooge and
A
Marley.
money lender named Scrooge. That's pleasant.
Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, the cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and could be heard in his grating voice.
Grating voice. That kind of sounds like your mother.
Nash.
Sorry.
No warmth could warm him, nor wintry weather chill him. No wind that blew was bitterer than he. When he walked through the streets, people avoided him like the plagues. Even dogs would pull their masters into doorways and out of his path. Scrooge didn't care. In fact, it was the very thing that he liked, to edge his way through the crowds, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance.
You and Scrooge already have something in common.
What?
You've both been canceled by dogs.
Coco.
There on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy behind the desk in his lending house. He kept his door open to keep an eye on his clerk, Bob Cratchit, for heaven forbid he should use an extra piece of coal from the fire, as he was attempting to keep himself warm with the meager heat of a single candle.
I wonder how well that would work in our house. I mean, seriously, how much heat does a family of 5 really need anyway?
He's a funny guy.
Oh, wait, hold on. Less heat, more trips to Hobby Lobby.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, no, I'm on board.
Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you.
Ah, humbug.
Christmas a humbug, Uncle. You don't mean that, I'm sure.
Oh, he does.
I do.
See?
Merry Christmas. What right do you have to be merry? What reasons do you have? You're poor enough.
Come on, Uncle. What right do you have to be so dismal? Why are you always in such a bad mood? You're rich enough.
Ah, humbug.
Don't be cross, Uncle.
Why shouldn't I be? Christmas is just another time of year for you to pay bills without money. To find yourself a year older and yet not an hour richer.
See, I like that. Scrooge and I? Oh, we're on the same page here.
If it were my choice, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
Okay, now you lost me.
Uncle!
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
You do you, Fred?
Christmas is the only time when people are kind, forgiving, and charitable. For the first time all year, they open their hearts to others and look at those less fortunate as equals. Therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good, and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
Here, here. One more peep out of you, Cratchit, and you'll be spending your Christmas in the unemployment line. As for you, Fred, you're such a powerful, persuasive speaker. Why don't you go into Parliament?
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come over tomorrow and join us for Christmas dinner.
Dear Fred, he's going to boil you in pudding.
Not a good way to go.
But why?
You're asking me why? Why did you get married?
I ask myself that all the time.
Because I fell in love.
Oh, yeah, that.
Because you fell in love. Love is the one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas. Good afternoon.
I want nothing of you. I ask nothing of you. Why can't we be friends?
I said good afternoon.
I'm sorry you are so determined to be unhappy. I did not come here to argue, but I have made my case for Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas cheer till the end. So, Uncle, Merry Christmas.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon!
And a Merry Christmas to you, Bob.
Thank you. Season's greetings to you, Fred.
As Scrooge's nephew left, he let two other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office. They held books and papers in their hands, and they both bowed to him.
Scrooge and Marley, I believe. Do I have the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley has been dead 7 years. In fact, he died 7 years ago this very night.
Our condolences indeed, sir. Now to business. During this festive season, Mr. Scrooge, it is tradition that we make some slight provision for the poor and destitute who suffered greatly during this time. Many thousands lack basic necessities. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir.
Are there no prisons?
Plenty of prisons.
And the workhouses, are they still in operation?
They are still. I wish I could say they were not.
Oh, I was afraid something had happened and they'd been shut down. Glad to hear it.
How much of a donation can we put you down for?
Nothing.
Oh, you wish to remain anonymous.
I wish to be left alone. I do not make myself merry at Christmas, and I can't afford to make lazy people merry. My taxes support the establishments mentioned, and they cost enough. If people are as badly off as you say, they can go there.
But many can't go there, and the rest would rather die.
If they'd rather die, then they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Cold.
Yeah, ice cold.
Don't rush, see, merry gentlemen, let not find you dismay. Remember Christ our Saviour was born on Christmas Day to save us all.
As Scrooge opened his front door, he noticed an uninvited holiday wreath that had been hung on it, and looked at it with utter offense before he flung it so fiercely at the young singer that the boy fled in terror.
And you'll want the day off tomorrow, I suppose, eh, Cratchit?
If it's convenient, sir.
It's not convenient.
It's only once a year,
A
sir.
poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose if you must have the whole day, be here all the earlier the next morning.
Oh, I will, sir. I promise I will, sir. Thank you, sir.
High above them, the ancient church's gruff old bell began to toll. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness had thickened throughout the streets, and the cold had become intense. It was time to close shop, and with an ill will, Scrooge left his desk, snuffed out his candle, put on his hat, and stepped into the chilly, damp evening. He lived in a dreary, old, gloomy suite of rooms that had once belonged to his deceased partner. Now, we must keep in mind that Scrooge had not given a single thought to Marley since the last mention of his dead partner that afternoon. He made his way through the fog and frost that hung about the dark old gateway to his house and placed his key in the lock of the door. There before him, the door knocker had changed into Marley's face. It was not angry or ferocious, but looked at Scrooge as Marley had used to look, with ghostly spectacles turned up upon his ghostly forehead. The hair was wild, and the eyes were wide open and perfectly motionless. Even as Scrooge became aware of what he was actually seeing, it became a knocker again.
Oh, come on. Scroogey's not the type to be startled.
To say he was not startled would be untrue.
Okay.
Scrooge turned the key, walked in, and lit his candle. He did pause before he shut the door, looking cautiously behind it.
Humbug.
Okay, pack up the kids. We're booking an Airbnb.
What? You don't think I could protect you?
Who kills the spiders in our house?
Spider bear, is it on me?
Not
It's
a real
on me.
spider. No real spider. Nope.
The face had left enough of an impression with Scrooge that he spent an extra moment looking through the house before he sank down before the fire in the fireplace to eat his gruel. There was a bell that hung on the wall above him, and for some inexplicable reason he glanced up with dread and saw it begin to swing. The bell began to ring louder and faster and was suddenly joined by a cacophony of bells throughout the house. And suddenly, they stopped. There came to his ear the sound of clanking chains being dragged across the floor towards him. Scrooge whipped around to behold the ghostly figure of his old dead partner, Jacob Marley. He was wrapped tightly in chains and dragging them along heavily behind him.
Who are you?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
What do you want with me?
Much.
It's a humbug still. I won't believe it.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheat. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are. Mercy! Dreadful apparition, why do you torment me? You are fettered. Tell me why.
I were the chain I forced in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Do you know the weight and length of the chain you bear yourself? It was as heavy and long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have been hard at work.
Scrooge trembled as he looked about himself with the expectation of finding himself surrounded by iron cable, but he could see nothing.
Jacob, oh Jacob Marley, speak comfort to me.
I have none to give. I have found that no amount of regret can make amends for the misuse of one's life, and I did misuse my life.
But you were always a good man of business, Jacob.
Business? Mankind was my business. Any sort of charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were but a drop of water in the ocean of my business. Now hear me. My time is nearly gone. I have come tonight to warn you that you have a chance and a hope of escaping my fate, Ebenezer.
You were always a good friend to me.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
If that's the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob, I think I'd rather not.
Expect the first visitor when the bell tolls 1.
Couldn't I take them all at once and have it over with, Jacob?
When the bell tolls 1.
Humbug.
See, you know what? I'm not even going to lie. I'm liking this humbug thing. I'm totally bringing it back.
Oh. Okay. You really think you can pull that off?
Oh, yeah. Come on. Throwback slang is very lit right now.
Yeah, okay. But not in front of the children.
What? Oh, come on. Humbug.
Nash.
Much in need of some peace, Scrooge went straight to bed and fell asleep the instant his head hit the pillow. His sleep was fitful and restless, and before long he awoke to the sound of chimes.
Nothing. Must have been a horrible dream.
Light flashed upon the room in an instant, and the curtains of the bed were blown aside. Scrooge leapt out of bed and found himself face to face with an unearthly visitor. It was a strange figure, like a child, but also like an old woman. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous, shiny belt. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light. At times its edges melted into the background, and at other times it was distinct and clear as ever.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past.
What business do you have with me?
Your welfare.
I'm much obliged, but I think I'd rather have a night of unbroken rest. Thank you very much.
Your restoration, then. Take heed. Rise and walk with me.
Scrooge wanted to plead that it was not suitable to be outside that late at night in the freezing weather. After all, he was clad only in slippers, a dressing gown, and his nightcap. But as the ghost gently clasped his hand, he could not resist. He rose, and as they made their way to the window, he tugged on her robe.
I am mortal, and I'm afraid I will fall.
But a touch of my hand, and you will have nothing to fear.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either side. The city vanished before them, along with the darkness and the mist. Instead, it was a clear, cold winter's day with snow upon the ground.
Good heaven, I was born and raised here as a child.
Scrooge was conscious of 1,000 odors floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares, long, long forgotten.
Do you ever run into anything that reminds you of your childhood?
Yes. The smell of clean laundry just out of the dryer. Yeah. It reminds me of my mom. Oh, man, you got me misty-eyed, Chloe.
Your lip is trembling. And what is that on your cheek? A tear?
It's nothing.
They walked along, and Scrooge recognized every gate, post, and tree until they came to an old schoolhouse where boys were riding away on shaggy ponies, on carts driven by farmers, and others were simply walking down the road. All the boys were in great spirits and shouted to each other until the broad fields were full of merry music.
There's Henry and Oliver. Hello, old friends.
These are but shadows of the things that have been. They cannot see or hear us.
I cannot imagine why I am so full of gladness to see my old friends part ways and wish each other a Merry Christmas as they leave for home. What's a Merry Christmas to me? What good has it ever done me?
The school is not quite deserted. A solitary child neglected by his friends is left there still.
I know it.
The school door opened before them and revealed a long, bare, melancholy room made barer still by lines of plain desks. At one of these, a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire. Scrooge sat down and wept to see his poor self as a child, forgotten.
Poor boy. I wish I had... Well, it's too late now.
What's the matter?
Nothing. It's just that there was a boy singing a Christmas carol outside my window last night. I wish I had given him something, that's all.
Are you okay?
Yeah, why?
Oh, well, I guess it's because I haven't heard any witty commentary out of you in at least a full minute.
No, I just know what it's like to have regrets is all.
Let's see another Christmas.
Scrooge's former self as a child grew up before him, and the room became a little darker and a little dirtier. There he was, alone again, when all the other boys had gone home for the jolly holidays. He was not reading now, but walking up and down the room despairingly. Scrooge looked at the ghost and, with a mournful shake of his head, glanced anxiously towards the door. A little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in, throwing her arms around his neck and kissing him.
Dear, dear brother, I've come to bring you home, 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 home.
Home, little sister. Are you sure?
Yes, home for good, forever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be. Home is like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. He said yes, you should and sent me in a carriage to bring you. But first we'll spend Christmas together all along and have the merriest time in all the world.
You are very brave, little Fan.
She stood on her tiptoes to embrace her brother once again before she took him by the hand, dragging him in a childlike eagerness towards the door.
Farewell, schoolmaster. I'm taking my brother home and he won't be back.
They loaded up into the coach and drove happily down the garden sweep, the quick wheels dashing across the frost and snow-covered ground.
She was always such a delicate little creature, but she had a large heart.
Oh, just like you, Chloe.
Are you calling me a creature?
Maybe first thing in the morning.
Excuse me.
Oh, no. Because you have a large heart for others.
Better answer.
You're right. She did have a large heart. There's no denying that.
She died as a young woman and had children?
One child.
Ah, yes. Your nephew.
Yes.
You know what? This actually does remind me of... never mind. It's fine.
You sure you don't want to talk about anything?
Yeah, I'm sure.
You don't have to. But I'm sure we'd all love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, well, it's just... This whole thing with Scrooge's sister kind of has me thinking a little bit about my mom.
Oh, she was an incredible woman.
Oh, yeah. I just remember her scraping together a couple of last-minute dollars, to get us this little Charlie Brown tree and just a couple of presents so that Christmas wouldn't be ruined. She was really proud of that tree.
Man, how blessed you are you had a mom like that. Yeah. She devoted herself to being all things to you and your brother. She's mother and father, counselor. She picked up all the slack he left behind.
Yeah, she made the whole house brighter.
And no matter how exhausted she was, she made sure you boys were in church every Sunday. Mm-hmm. And if she hadn't, we probably wouldn't have met. I have a lot of respect for her. I don't know that I could have done it.
Hey, you could do it. You're a supermom.
Thanks, love.
I cannot believe you.
What?
Well, here I am. I said that tonight wasn't going to be a big emotional mush fest, and you got me talking about my feelings again.
Oh, I did. How'd that happen?
Our presentation of A Christmas Carol will continue. But first, another important message.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, my. It's almost 6 o'clock. Bill will be home any minute. The house is spotless. The kids are scrubbed. Dinner's in the stove. Oh, but look at my face.
Father's nearly home, so why not take a moment to check and see that every hair is in place and that your face looks fresh. After all, you want to be at your best when you greet him at the door. He's had a long day. And Glamour Gal Cosmetics are the grandest way Mother knows to look her very best. What's the secret? Glamour Gal Cosmetics contain rendered animal fat. From the finest livestock to give you that lovely, just washed look. With additives like the purest mercury, lead, and asbestos.
No.
Ingredients that cosmetic experts all agree will give your face a happy, healthy glow. Glamour Gal products are used by Hollywood starlets to look their most radiant on screen. So if you're tired of looking tired, do as thousands of ladies have done and put on a fresh face with new Glamour Gal.
Glamour Gal, Glamour Gal, it will make Father say, wow, wow, wow.
Wow. What is wrong with these people? Okay, let's try this out. Chloe, Father's nearly home.
Ooh, and there's a big pile of dishes in the sink waiting for him.
Wow.
And now, back to A Christmas Carol.
In the blink of an eye, they left the schoolyard behind and were now in the busy streets of a city. It was evening, the streets were lit up, and it was evident by the decorations in the shops that it was Christmas time again. They stopped in front of a door to a warehouse.
Do you know this place?
Of course I do. This is old Fezziwig's. He gave me my first opportunity as an apprentice.
They went in, and there in the room was Scrooge's former self, now a grown young man, working away at numbers and figures with his young co-workers. Fezziwig was there, sitting behind such a high desk that if he had been 2 inches higher, he would have hit his head on the ceiling. As they watched, he laid down his pen and checked the clock, rubbing his hands together and adjusting his sizable waistcoat.
You heard me, boys. Victor, Ebenezer, no more work tonight. It's Christmas Eve. Let's get clear away and get ready for the party. Clear away, me lads.
There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable item was packed, the floor was swept and mopped, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright as a winter night's ballroom. As the fiddler arrived and began to play, in came Mrs. Fezziwig with her 3 daughters, beaming and lovable. In came their 6 young suitors, whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business, including the housemaid, the baker, the milkman, and the cook. Even the boy from down the street, who was suspected of having nowhere to go, was invited. They all arrived, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly. But no matter how they came, they were all welcome.
Come, join us, one and all. The more the merry, I always say. Strike up the band and let us not waste a moment.
And away they went, 20 couples at once, dancing across the room. All the while, Scrooge looked on his former self, remembering everything, enjoying everything, invested heart and soul in the scene. It was then that he noticed a figure he had long pressed from his memory, a radiant young woman who swept into the room in a modest yet elegant blue dress that sparked the corners of his memory and brought about feelings he had forgotten he was even capable of.
Master Fezziwig, who is that young woman?
She is a friend of the family. Let me introduce you, me boy.
Fezziwig led him over with great enthusiasm to the beautiful young woman, who was now absorbed in conversation with the Fezziwig daughters, while they all studiously ignored the desperate young men around them, earnestly begging for just a single dance.
Belle, my dear, allow me to introduce you to a wonderful young man in my employment. This is Ebenezer.
The moment their eyes met, between them, it was like the sparks that danced in the roaring fireplace.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
And are you?
Would you care to dance?
Belle nodded, and at that Scrooge swept her onto the dance floor, while the other young men eyed them jealously from the edges of the room. But he gave them not an ounce of care, and neither did Belle for that matter. The room disappeared along with the music and the chattering and the hilarity. In that moment, there was just the 2 of them, floating across the dance floor through the evening and into the early hours of the morning. Although very late, the end of the party arrived much too soon. Fezziwig and his wife took their places on either side of the door as their guests left into the night.
Merry Christmas to you, dear ones.
And a fine one to you, Mrs. Fezziwig.
Take tomorrow off, me lad.
Are you certain, sir?
Of course. It's Christmas. It only comes once a year. Eat, drink, and be merry to your heart's content. And be late the following day, for that matter.
Why, thank you, sir.
It didn't take much to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. It probably only cost but a few pounds of mortal money to bring so much joy and praise from his employees.
It cost him nothing. He had the power to make us happy or sad, to make our job light or burdensome, a pleasure or toil. It was in his words, his looks, in ways that are impossible to count, and they were priceless.
What's the matter, Ebenezer?
Nothing.
It must be something.
No, it's just that I wish I could say a word or two to my clerk, Bob Cratchit, that's all.
My time is short. We must go.
As Scrooge's former self turned down the lamps, the room disappeared around them. There before them, Scrooge saw himself as an older man now, in the prime of his life. His face didn't have the harsh ridge lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care in the pursuit of wealth. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in his eye, which showed the passion that had taken root there. He was not alone, but sat alongside a fair young woman in a dress, who Scrooge recognized as Belle. She had tears in her eyes, which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past.
It matters very little to you now that you love something more than me. I just hope it can bring you cheer and comfort in your future, as I would have tried to do.
What has replaced you?
Something golden.
It's just the way the world works, Belle. You have no idea of the hardship that poverty brings.
You fear the world too much. All of your other noble hopes and dreams have fallen off one by one until you've been engrossed entirely by the pursuit of gain.
I'm simply wiser. It doesn't change how I feel about you.
When we were first engaged to be married, we were both poor and content to be so until we could improve our situation together. You have changed. You were a different man then.
I was a boy.
I am the same as I was then. And now that we are on such different paths, my heart is full of misery. I have spent much time and energy thinking about it, and I wish to release you from your obligation to marry me.
I don't wish to be released.
If you could do it all over again, as you are now, you would never seek me out to try to win me.
You think not?
I would gladly think otherwise if I could. I know for certain you would never choose a dowerless girl now that you see the entire world in terms of whether or not it can bring you wealth. I release you, Ebenezer, but I have no regret of loving the man that you once were.
Belle.
This might be painful to you. You may feel sad, but it will be brief, and you will dismiss all recollection of it as some unhappy dream you have woken from. May you be happy with the life you've chosen for yourself.
Wow. Do you think it's because she realized her name would be Belle Scrooge?
Yeah, it doesn't exactly roll off the tongue.
No, not really.
No.
Spirits, show me no more. Take me home. Why do you delight to torture me, spirit? Remove me from this place.
I told you, these were shadows of the things that have been. They are what they are. Do not blame
Remove me. I cannot bear it. Leave me. Take me home. Haunt me no longer.
And before he knew it, he was back in his room and in his own bed. Scrooge was aware that he was exhausted and overcome with irresistible drowsiness, so much that before his head even hit the pillow, he sank into a heavy sleep.
And on that note, I just heard George yell for something.
Yeah, probably a cup of water. What is it about bedtime that makes our kids so incredibly parched?
This is what it looks like to work from home. Let's take 15.
Yep. I could use a snack. Okay, we're back, and before we get started, we're going to be reading some of your comments in the comment section. We've got time for just a couple. What happened there?
Bailey didn't want juice. Bailey wanted lemonade.
That kid terrifies me.
That makes two of us. Okay, into the comments. Lasso the Moon 48 says, you guys seem really strained lately. Just letting you know I'm praying for you both. Thank you for the prayer. This is what marriage is like. There's peaks and valleys, and this is what open communication looks like in a valley. When one of us is down, the other has to be really strong.
You are definitely the strong one right now.
And by God's grace, we are going to get through this.
Yeah. Let's see. Trollbait765 says, get a real job? Well, Trollbait765, you and my mother-in-law might have something in common, unless Chloe's, is that your mom? Mom, is that you?
Strike two, Nash. You know she listens to every show.
I know she does.
Wow. Okay, that is absolutely all the time we have for comments. I'm sorry, Mama, if you're listening. He's joking.
Or am I?
Stop doing that.
Sorry.
When the bell tolled one, Scrooge lay upon his bed as a blaze of ruddy light streamed through his bed curtains.
Oh, this is unbelievable. Let the man get his beauty rest.
Come in! Ho, 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 ho. Come in!
Scrooge obeyed. It was his own room, there is no doubt about that, but it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceilings were so hung with living greenery that it looked like a perfect grove where bright, gleaming berries glistened. There were crisp leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflecting back the light. There was a mighty blaze in the fireplace that went roaring up the chimney that had never been seen before in Scrooge's dim house. Heaped upon the floor were turkeys, geese, suckling pigs, long wreaths of sausages, minced pies, plum puddings, juicy oranges, luscious pears, and overflowing bowls of punch. Lounging on the couch was a jolly giant, glorious to see, holding a torch to shed its glowing light on Scrooge as he came timidly peeping through his bed curtains.
Come in, I say, and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. I am sure you have never seen the like of me before.
Never.
Have you never walked with any of my younger or older brothers?
No, I don't think I have, Spirit. Do you have many brothers?
More than 1,800.
My, what a tremendous family to provide for. Spirit, take me where you would like me to go. I went forth last night and learned a lesson which is working now. I am ready for whatever you have to teach me.
Touch my robe.
Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast. The holly, mistletoe, red berries, ivy, turkey, geese, game,
Dickens,
poultry,
not
meat,
this again.
pigs,
Just
sausages,
get on
pies,
with it.
puddings, fruit, and punch all vanished instantly, along with the room, the fire, the ruddy glow of the torch, and the hour of the night. Scrooge found himself standing in a city street on Christmas morning. The weather was severe. There was the sound of snow shovels scraping the pavement in front of each of the houses, as well as delighted boys deeply entrenched in a fierce snowball fight. Everyone was jovial and full of glee, even those shoveling snow, laughing heartily as they dodged snowballs while they completed their work. The stores were still open, but hurrying to close that holiday morning, while the customers also hurried, eager with hopeful promise of the day, tumbling up against one another through the shops.
Out of my way!
And who says?
I say!
Why, I oughta...
The sight of these poor souls appeared to interest the spirit, sprinkling on them from his torch. Any angry words between them as they jostled along were suddenly restored into good humor.
It's a shame to quarrel on a Christmas Day.
So it is. God love it, so it is.
Merry Christmas.
What a peculiar torch that is. Would it apply to anyone on this day?
To the poor, mostly.
Why to a poor one most?
Because they need it more than most.
You know what? I could use a torch like that. I wonder where I could get one. It'd come really in handy when you're cranky in the mornings. And
Tread lightly, Nash.
I'm checking sharper image.
The ghost had a remarkable quality that, despite his gigantic size, he could accommodate himself in any place with ease. He stood under a low roof just as gracefully as he would in a lofty hall. Perhaps it was his own kind, generous, hearty nature, and his sympathy with all poor men that led him straight to Bob Cratchit's house, Scrooge's clerk. As they walked through the threshold of the door, the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with a sprinkle of his torch. Mrs. Cratchit was busy preparing dinner while their children danced and played around the table.
I wonder what's keeping your precious father and brother, Tiny Tim.
There's father coming now.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Why, bless your heart alive, my dear. How late you are. And how did little Tim behave?
As good as gold. Somehow, he gets thoughtful sitting by himself all alone in the church and comes up with the strangest things you've ever heard. He told me that he hoped that the people in church saw him on the way out because he was a cripple.
Well, I thought it might be pleasant for them to remember upon Christmas Day who it was who made the lame beggars to walk and the blind men to see.
They sat around the table, all of their children, Tiny Tim, Peter, Belinda, and the two little sisters, and such a bustle ensued that one might have thought a goose was the rarest of birds. Saucepans hissed, chairs scuffed across the floor, and dishes clanked. Finally, everyone was seated and waited with bated breaths as Mrs. Cratchit slowly raised the carving knife and began to carve the goose, which was just as juicy, tender, and well-cooked as she had wanted it to be.
There's never been such a goose, my dear.
When dinner was done, the cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fireplace lit. All of the Cratchit family drew round together, and Bob poured each a glass to toast.
To Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
Oh, the founder of the feast? Indeed. I wish I had him here. I'd certainly give him a piece of me mind to feast upon, and I'd hope he'd have a good appetite for it.
My dear, the children. Christmas Day.
It should be Christmas Day, I'm sure, that one drinks to the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfilling man as Mr. Scrooge. Oh, you know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you, poor fella.
Wow. If I'm Scrooge, you are definitely Mrs. Cratchit.
Yeah, I'll take that as a badge of honor.
My dear.
I'll drink to his health for your sake, and for the day's, but not for his. Long life to him. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and happy, I have no doubt.
A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us.
God bless us.
God bless us, everyone.
Tiny Tim sat very close to his father's side. Bob held his withered little hand in his as if he wished to keep him by his side because he loved the child and he dreaded that he might be taken from him.
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
Oh no, kind spirit, say he will be spared.
Why then, if he were to die, he had better do it, and decrease the surplus population.
Scrooge hung his head to hear his own words quoted by the spirit, and was overcome with penitence and grief. In the whole Cratchit family, there was no one of high mark. They were not handsome, they were not well-dressed, their shoes were far from quality, and their clothes were scanty. But they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time. And when they faded, and looked happier yet in the bright sprinklings of the spirit's torch at parting, Scrooge had his eye upon them all, especially Tiny Tim, until the last. While he contemplated the profound secrets of death, it was a great surprise to Scrooge to hear his own nephew's hearty laughter, and to find himself in a bright, dry, gleaming room with the spirit standing smiling by his side.
He actually said Christmas was a humbug, as I live. He believed it, too.
More shame for him, Fred.
He's a funny old fellow, that's the truth. Not so pleasant as he might be. However, he's paying the punishment of his own life choices.
I'm sure he's very rich, Fred. At least that's what you've always told me.
And what of it, my dear? His wealth is of no use to him. He doesn't do any good with it. He doesn't even keep himself comfortable with it. He certainly would never think of benefiting us with it.
Oh, I have no patience for him.
Oh, I have. I feel sorry for him, and I couldn't be angry with him if I tried. Who suffers from all his ill whims but himself? Always. He decided to dislike us, and he won't even come and dine with us. And what's the consequence? He misses out on quite an amazing dinner and company with pleasanter companions than he can find in his the old office or his dusty chambers. I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not. For I pity him. Maybe in the least he will leave his clerk £50. That's something. I think I may have shook him yesterday.
As if anyone could shake old Scrooge.
Let's get our minds off all that dreariness and play a game, shall we, Fred?
Yes, let's do. Let's play yes, no.
Can we stay, Spirit?
We must go.
Oh, only one round.
Okay.
Just one.
Okay, I've got it.
Is it a thing?
No.
Is it an animal?
Kind of.
Is it alive or dead?
Alive in part, I'd say.
Is it disagreeable?
Almost always.
Savage?
Extremely.
Does it growl?
And grunts for that matter.
A tiger.
A bear?
Not a bear.
A dog.
Definitely not a dog.
I know what it is, Fred.
Yes?
It's not a bear, a dog, or even a tiger.
Yes?
I would guess it's your Uncle Scrooge.
He has given us plenty of merriment.
I'm sure, and it would be ungrateful not to drink to his health. To Uncle Scrooge!
To Uncle Scrooge!
A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the old man, wherever he is. He wouldn't take it from me. But may he have it nevertheless.
Wow, this is just reminding me of how much I don't miss this.
Miss what?
Seeing people year after year who have no problem talking about us behind our backs.
You don't know that, and even if they are, there's nothing you can do about it. Just move on.
I don't want to move on. I want to be done. I mean, these people couldn't even send us a text when they knew that we were struggling.
They may not know.
Chloe, come on. Everybody knows everything. Our lives are entirely public. We're always authentic, remember? But no, let's just check a box in the name of the holidays and pack our weekends with Christmas parties. I mean, I suppose if we don't go, we're going to become the Scrooge in their game of charades.
I don't think this is about them at all. I think that this is about
Wait. No. I know who you're about to bring up. Just don't do that. Please.
Well, then all I've got to say is that you get what you give, Nash.
Okay, I'm listening.
You're not listening, though. When is the last time you checked in on anyone?
Why are you defending people who have no problem canceling us at the drop of a hat?
We can take the high road. We're Christians. We need to do better about saying we're sorry. Even I can admit that show about the elections was a step too far.
I'm not going to apologize for something that I feel strongly about. You're too nice sometimes. Yeah, you open yourself up to getting hurt. Nice. No, but let's do it your way. Let's pack up our schedule. You drag me and the kids along to these places. Heaven forbid that we should miss out on a wonderful evening discussing the weather with Aunt Myrna.
Oh, you leave Aunt Myrna out of this because I could say a lot about Nana.
Hey, my Nana's an angel,
If you
okay?
isolate yourself the way you do, you are going to end up just like Scrooge or your dad. Maybe we should chill for a few minutes or else A Christmas Carol is going to take a hostile turn.
Yeah, that's one thing we can agree on. Back to Scrooge.
Scrooge felt so light of heart to be in their company, he didn't even mind the jokes at his own expense. He would have thanked them in an inaudible speech if the ghost had given him time, but the whole scene passed off in the breath of the last words spoken by his nephew, and he and the spirit were on their way. While Scrooge remained unaltered in his outward form, the ghost grew older. As they stood together in an open place, he noticed that its hair was now grey.
Are you growing older, Spirit?
My life upon this globe is very brief. It ends tonight.
Tonight?
Tonight at 1. The time is drawing near.
We'll be back to Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol in just a moment. But first, another important message.
Hattie, would you like a cup of coffee?
Oh, Ruth, that would be swell.
I hope you don't want milk or sugar. I'm afraid we've reached our ration limit this month.
I'll drink it plain, like the rest of the world. But dear, just half a cup. Too much gives the jitters something terrific.
But I made a pot of Potter's coffee. It'll never give you the jitters.
If coffee sets your nerves on edge, why not ask your grocer for Potter's coffee, made from the finest beans and roasted to perfection. Yet Potter's never makes you jittery. What's the secret? Potter's contains rendered animal fat from the finest livestock to give Potter's a more smooth and even coffee experience, with a rich, well-bodied flavor. So if coffee gives you the jitters, why not do as thousands have done and try doctor-recommended Potter's coffee?
Why, Hattie, you finished already?
I'll take another cup of Potter's. Plain, please.
Brew a pot, a big, big pot. Make a pot of Potter's. Too much pep, it's not got a great big pot of Potter's.
Nash, that reminds me, here is your half-calf, double-short, non-fat low-foam latte. But I'm afraid we're running awfully short on our rendered fat ration.
And now, back to our broadcast.
As the bell struck 1, Scrooge looked around for the ghost, but it was nowhere to be found. As the last stroke of the clock ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and, lifting up his eyes, he beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him. The phantom slowly, gravely, and silently approached. When it drew near him, Scrooge bent down upon his knee. It was shrouded in a deep black garment which concealed its head, its face, and its form, and left nothing visible save one outstretched hand. Its mysterious presence filled Scrooge with solemn dread.
Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come?
The spirit didn't answer, but instead pointed onwards with its hand.
You are about to show me the shadows of the things that have not happened yet but will happen in the future. Is that so, Spirit?
The spirit simply inclined its head, which was the only answer Scrooge received. Although well used to ghostly company by now, Scrooge feared the silent shape so much that his legs trembled beneath him, and he found he could hardly stand as he prepared to follow it.
Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any specter I have seen. But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear your company and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?
It gave him no reply, but silently stretched out its hand before him and pointed straight ahead.
Lead on then, Spirit.
Scrooge followed the phantom. They had scarcely entered the city, and it seemed to spring up around them and encompass them. There they were now, in the heart of it. Merchants hurried up and down the streets, clinking money in their pockets and conversing in groups. They looked at their watches and trifled thoughtfully with their great gold seals. Scrooge had seen them there often. The spirit stopped beside a little knot of businessmen. Observing that the hand was pointed to them, Scrooge leaned in and listened to them discuss.
No, I don't know much about it. I only know he's dead.
Really? When did he die?
Last night, I believe.
Was he sick? I thought he would never die.
Heaven knows.
I only want to know what he's done with his money.
I haven't heard. All I know is he didn't leave it to me. It's likely to be a very cheap funeral. I doubt if anyone would attend.
Well, I don't mind going, as long as lunch is provided.
The group dispersed and strolled away.
What was the importance of that, Spirit? I would say that it sounded much like Marley, but it couldn't be his death. That's in the past, and your province is the future, right, Spirit? I should be coming by any moment. Perhaps that will bring some clarity.
He looked about to see if he could see himself come round the corner, which was his custom around that time of day, but he saw no likeness of himself among the multitudes in the street.
Who then is the man they are talking about, Spirit?
Quiet and dark beside him stood the phantom with its outstretched hand. Its very presence made him shudder and feel very cold. They left the busy scene and went into an obscure part of town where Scrooge had never ventured before.
I would never be caught dead in this place of ill repute as long as I live. Why are we here?
The alleyways were foul and narrow, the shops and houses wretched, the people half-clothed and drunken. It was a cesspool full of offensive smells and grime. The whole quarter reeked of crime and filth and misery. There they came into the presence of old Joe, a gray-haired rascal of a man, nearly 70 years of age. He was approached by two women carrying heavy bundles into the man's shop, throwing them heavily onto the floor.
Fancy meeting you all here, ladies. Have you been to the House of Mourning?
I have indeed. I have a few things that a dead man certainly won't miss. Oh, no, indeed, I'm sure he won't. If he wanted to keep him after he was dead, the wicked old screw, why wasn't he more friendly in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have somebody with him when he was struck with death, instead of lying there gasping out his last breath all alone by himself. It's the truest word that was ever spoken. It's his own judgment. I wish it'd been a little heavier. What it should have been. Open that bundle, oh Joe, and let me know the value of it. Speak out plain. I'm not afraid to be the first, nor afraid for him to see it. We knew pretty well we were helping ourselves before we met him. It's no sin.
No.
Open the bundle, Joe.
What you call this? Bed curtain?
Yes, bed curtain.
You don't mean to say you took him down, rings and all, with him lying there?
Yes, I do. And why not?
You were born to make your fortune, and you'll certainly do it.
You're right about that. I'll reach out and take whatever I want, especially from a man like he was.
Oh,
don't drop that oil in the blankets now, Joe.
It's blankets?
Who do you think? He isn't likely to get cold without him, I dare say.
Scrooge listened to their dialogue in horror as they sat grouped about the spoil in the scanty light of the old man's lamp. He viewed them with such devastation and disgust as though they had been trying to sell the corpse itself. Old Joe produced a flannel bag with money in it and handed it off to the women.
This is the end of it, you see. He frightened everyone away from him while he was alive, only to profit us now that he's dead.
Spirit, I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. If we leave this dreadful place, I shall not leave its lesson. Trust me, let us go. If there is any person in the town who feels emotion caused by this man's death, show that person to me, Spirit, I beg you.
The phantom spread its dark robe before him for a moment like a wing, and, withdrawing it, revealed a room by daylight where a mother and her children were. She was expecting someone with anxious eagerness, for she paced up and down the room and jumped at every sound, looking out the window and glancing at the clock, and could hardly bear the voices of her children at play. She hurried to the door and met her husband, a man whose face was careworn and depressed, even though he was young. But there was a remarkable expression in it now, a kind of serious delight of which he felt ashamed and struggled to repress.
What news do you have? Tell me. Is it good or bad?
Good and bad, I suppose.
We are ruined?
No, Caroline, there is hope yet.
If he relents, there is. Nothing is past hope, but it will take a miracle.
He is past relenting. He is dead.
Oh. Oh, please forgive me, Lord, but I am thankful to hear it.
When we tried to see him last night to ask for a week's delay, that half-drunken woman told me that he was ill. I thought it was just an excuse to avoid me. It turns out to have been quite true. He was not only very ill, but dying.
And whom will our dead be transferred?
I don't know, but before that time we shall be ready with the money, and even if we were not, it would be bad fortune indeed to find as merciless a creditor. We may sleep with light hearts tonight, my dear.
Yes, their hearts were lighter. The children's faces, hushed and clustered round to hear what they so little understood, were brighter, and it was a happier house for this man's death. The only emotion that the ghost could show him caused by the event was one of pleasure.
Let me see some tenderness connected with the death, or this horribleness will be forever present with me.
The ghost whisked him away through several familiar streets. Scrooge still looked here and there to find himself, but he was nowhere to be seen. Finally, they entered poor Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling they had visited before, and found Mrs. Cratchit and the children seated around the fire. They were each very quiet. Their son Peter was reading while his mother and sisters were engaged in sewing. One thing was for certain, they were all very quiet.
And he took a child and sat him in the midst of them.
Where have I heard that before? Why does he not keep reading?
The smoke from the fire's making my eyes water, I'm afraid.
It's Tiny Tim, isn't it, Mother?
What about Tiny Tim, Spirit?
They're better now. It makes them weak by the candlelight. Your father will be home soon, and I wouldn't want to have weak eyes when he arrives. He should be here any minute.
Oh, it's past time, but I think he's walked a little slower than he used to these last few evenings, Mother.
Oh, I have known him to walk. I've known him to walk with... Oh! Tiny Tim upon his shoulders. Very fast indeed.
And so have I.
But he was very light to carry. And your father loved him so that it was no trouble at all. Oh, there's your father at the door.
She hurried to meet him, his tea hot and ready for him. The two young Cratchits got up upon his knees and laid each of their little cheeks against his face.
Don't mind it, Father. Don't be grieved.
Oh, girls, how quickly you've worked on your sewing. You'll be done long before Sunday.
Did you go today, Robert?
Yes, my dear. I wish you could have gone as well. It would have done you good to have seen how green the place is. You'll see it often enough. I promised him I would go down there and see him every Sunday. I'm so sorry. I cannot continue. If I had it my way, Tiny Tim and we would be together forever.
He was such a good child, such a dear child. He deserved to live. I'm so sorry, Bob. I'm so sorry.
Oh, Father, please don't cry.
I ran into Fred today, and even though I've only seen him the once before, when he heard what had happened, he told me how heartily sorry he was, and gave me his card, and told me not to hesitate to ask for anything that we should need. He was so kind and delightful, it really seemed as if he had known our Tiny Tim and felt the loss with us.
Fred is a good man, a better man than I.
I'm sure he's a good soul.
And I'm sure that we shall none of us forget our poor Tiny Tim. Shall we?
Never, Father.
Never.
And I know, my dears, that we'll always remember how patient and how mild he was. Even though he was a little child, I'm very happy for that. Very happy. Tiny Tim, the essence was from God.
Spectre, how is there hope in the world if such a small child be taken so early from the family who loves him? I shall always remember Tiny Tim. But who shall remember me? Something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I must know who is the man that lays dead.
The ghost of Christmas yet to come took him as before past the streets of businessmen, past his own house, and finally to his own place of business.
Of course, the lending house. I see it now. Let me behold what I shall be in days to come.
Even as the spirit had stopped there, his hand was pointing elsewhere.
There it is right there. Why do you point away?
The unwavering finger underwent no change. Scrooge hastened to the window of his office and looked inside. It was an office still, yes, but not his. The furniture was not the same, and the figure in the chair was not himself. He looked to the phantom, who was pointing as before to now what he realized was a churchyard. He joined it as they walked through the gravestones overrun with grass and weeds. The spirit stood amongst the graves and pointed down towards one. Scrooge advanced towards it, trembling.
Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be?
Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood.
Men can change their course. If they do, their ends will change.
The spirit was immovable as ever, as Scrooge crept towards the grave, trembling as he went and following the finger. There he read on the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Oh, no, Spirit. Spirit, hear me. I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I was. Why show me this if I am past all hope?
For the first time, the hand appeared to shake.
Good Spirit, your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I may yet change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life.
The hand trembled.
I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me that I may erase away the writings on this stone.
Nash, are you okay?
Yeah.
I'm sorry for what I said.
No. Don't be sorry.
But I am. Please forgive me.
It's not your fault. I'm sorry for blaming you. There's nothing wrong with the way that you do Christmas. It's perfect. You're perfect.
That's not true. But thank you.
No. Seriously, the way that you forgive people? 70 times 7, right?
Right.
Look at me. Don't ever change that aspect of who you are. It's one of a kind, and it's why I love you.
I should have never compared you to your dad.
No, I think you were right.
How is that again?
I said I think that you were right.
Nash, I'm about to call 911. Do you have a fever?
No, I'm not sick. I think it is about my dad.
Are you sure you want to get into this?
We're always authentic, right?
Okay. I'm with you. We're a team.
I know we are. Okay, here we go. I've never mentioned this on the podcast before, so bear with me. Remember how earlier I said that my mom would have to scrape together a couple of dollars for a sad little tree? Right. Well, that's because my dad left on Christmas Eve. I was 8 years old. I was standing at the window and I saw him driving away. And I could see that my mother had been crying. You know, she tried to hide it, but her eyes were all red and puffy, and that's not how she wanted us to remember Christmas. But it just seemed like it was the one thing that she couldn't fix. And it's always been in the back of my mind around this time of year, you know, and my dad was a really angry guy. And he just threw away everything that really mattered.
Maybe his heart wasn't changed like Scrooge, but look at you and the man that God has made you. You have a heavenly Father who will never abandon you. You're not a product of your trauma, Nash, and I know that's taken a lot of work. I've been with you every step of the way. I've seen the struggle. I know sometimes it rises to the surface, but give yourself grace. Because I see a man who has chosen to be an outstanding husband and father and my best friend.
You're my best friend too, Chloe.
And now I want to listen to the rest of the show together. So let's roll it back.
Okay.
The hand trembled.
I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all year long. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me that I may erase away the writings on the stone.
In his agony, he caught the spectral hand. The spirit, stronger yet, broke free. Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fates reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own. Scrooge scrambled out of bed, his face wet with tears.
I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven in the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, oh, Jacob, on my knees. I don't know what to do. I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. A Merry Christmas to everyone, and a Happy New Year to all the world.
Really, for a man who had been out of practice for so many years, he had a splendid laugh, a most illustrious laugh. It was the father of a long, long line of brilliant laughs.
Glorious, glorious.
Running to the window, he opened it and put his head out. There was no fog, no mist. It was a clear, bright, jovial, cold morning with golden sunlight in the heavenly sky. The air was fresh and merry. There was a young boy in Sunday clothes who paused to look about him as Scrooge hung out the window.
Glorious, glorious indeed. Hey there, boy. What's today?
Eh?
I said, what's today, my fine fellow?
Why, it's Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. Oh, the spirits must have done it all in one night. They can do whatever they like. Of course they can. Hey there, my fine fellow.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the butcher shop on the next street on the corner?
Well, I should hope so.
An intelligent boy, a remarkable lad. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up in the window? Not the little prize turkey, the big one.
You mean the one as big as me?
What a delightful boy. What a pleasure it is to talk to you. Yes, that very one.
Why, it's hanging there now.
Fantastic. Go and buy it.
You must be daft.
No. I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown.
You got it, mister.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit. He won't know who said it, and it's twice the size of Tiny Tim. It'll be a grand surprise.
His hand was not a steady one as he wrote the address, but write it he did somehow and went downstairs to open the door, ready for the coming of the butcher's man. And when it arrived, what a turkey it was.
Why, it's impossible for you to carry it all the way there. You must have a cab.
Scrooge chuckled as he said this, and chuckled as he paid for the turkey, and chuckled as he paid for the cab, and chuckled as he paid for the boy. He chuckled until he sat down breathlessly in his chair, and again chuckled until he cried. Shaving was not an easy task, for his hand continued to shake, and shaving requires attention even when you don't dance while you're at it. He dressed himself in all his best and at last got out onto the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth, as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present. Walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile. He was so irresistibly pleasant that 3 or 4 good-humored fellows even ventured out of their way to say,
Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you.
My dear fellow, of all the wonderful sounds I've ever heard, those are the most wonderful in my ears.
He had not gone far when, coming towards him, were the portly gentlemen who had walked into his lending house the day before. It sent a pang across his heart to think how these gentlemen would look upon him when they met, but he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it.
My dear sir, how do you do? I hope you succeeded in your task yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Mr. Scrooge?
Yes, that's my name. I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your forgiveness. And will you give me the honor of donating?
Scrooge leant in and whispered the sum in the man's ear.
Lord bless me. My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?
And not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you.
My dear sir, I don't know what to say.
Don't say anything. Come and see me. Will you come and see me?
We certainly will.
Thank you. I'm much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times over. Bless
Merry
you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Scrooge went to church and walked the streets and watched the people hurry to and fro and patted children on the head and questioned beggars and looked down into kitchens and up into windows and found that everything could bring him pleasure. He had never dreamt that any walk, that anything, for that matter, could give him so much happiness. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door 12 times before he had the courage to go up and knock.
May I help you, sir?
Is the master of the house at home, dear?
Yes, sir, he is. He's in the dining room along with the mistress. I'll show you upstairs, if you please.
It's okay. He knows me.
They were all sitting at the table when Scrooge came bursting into the dining room that was spread with a great array for the special day. They all jumped from their seats as they saw him come into the room.
Fred!
Why, bless my soul, who is that? I don't believe it.
It is I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in?
Oh, of course, of course.
Let him in. It's a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. Scrooge felt at home in 5 minutes, and nothing could have been merrier. It was a wonderful party with wonderful games and wonderful happiness. But he was early to the office the next morning. Oh, he was early so that he could be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming in late. He had his heart set on it. And he did come late. The clock struck 9. No Bob. A quarter past. No Bob. He was a full 18 minutes past the time he was due, and Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him walk to his desk. His hat was off before he opened the door and snuck past quietly to his seat in a jiffy, scratching away with his pen quickly so as to catch up on the work he was so behind on.
Cratchit, what do you mean by coming here at this time of day?
I'm very sorry, sir. I'm very late indeed, sir.
You certainly are. Step into my office.
It's only once a year, sir, and it'll never happen again. We were having such a good time at Christmas yesterday, sir. I simply overslept.
No, I'll tell you what, my friend. I am not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore...
Scrooge leapt from his chair with such ferocity that Bob staggered backwards, bracing for whatever fury his boss was going to throw his way. He grabbed a rule off the desk with a momentary idea of defending himself or calling to the people in the courtyard for help.
And therefore, I am going to raise your salary. A Merry Christmas to you, Bob, my good fellow.
What?
I'm going to raise your salary and help your struggling family. We'll discuss all your affairs over lunch this afternoon, Bob.
But, sir, I don't understand.
You were always a steadfast employee and, dare say, a friend to me, Bob. Even when I certainly did not deserve it, you always drank to my health. And for that I am eternally grateful. It's a debt I have to repay. Please accept it and forgive me for all that has passed between us. Now, take all the coal you want and turn up the heat in your office before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more, and to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was like a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a boss, as good a man as the good old city knew. It was said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas as well as any man alive. And what a Christmas that will be when the same can truly be said of all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone.
And that concludes our 1937 broadcast of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And with that, WJBC Radio Coast to Coast, signing off and wishing you a Merry Christmas and a happy 1938.
I loved that. I really did. And I hope you all did too, because I think it really came together for a great show.
Oh, yeah. It was awesome. Probably one of our best.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of speed bumps in the middle there, but it was definitely one of our best. Oh, well, to the listeners, for those who stuck around and weren't terrified, thanks for sticking around. And Chloe, thank you for always keeping me grounded. I'm going to try and talk a lot less and listen a lot more.
And I'll always be here, even when you don't want to listen, which might happen sooner than later. Is there maybe somebody you need to apologize to?
Yeah, I know what you mean. To the listeners, let's start over. I am the type of guy who likes to put up walls, but I really don't want to be that guy, so I'm sorry.
Is there maybe somebody else?
Oh, yeah, Chloe's mom, because I know that you're listening, because you always are, because you just can't help
Nash.
yourself. I'm sorry. Sorry.
I think we're missing one more. Woof, woof.
Oh, no, please,
Yes,
Chloe,
just
don't make
one
me
more,
do...
please.
I'm sorry, Coco. Is everybody happy now?
Oh, I sure am.
Okay.
You know, it's amazing God can use an almost 100-year-old radio broadcast to soften a heart.
You know what? There might just be something to that, Chloe. And on that note, to our listeners, subscribers, and yes, even our trolls, I'm looking straight at you, Trollbait765. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And until next time, God bless us, everyone.
You know what? I like that instead. Let's go out on that. On 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
God bless us, everyone.
The Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing.
You know, it's our closing night, so you can sit down again. They asked me to do some selections from my live album, but it's too late. It's too late. My name's David. I'm one of the pastors here, and when I heard that Grace Theater was going to do a Christmas Carol, I was a little concerned. And then they told me that one of our own, Amy Caldwell, was going to adapt it into what you saw tonight, because the Christmas Carol story by itself doesn't go along with what the Bible teaches us. You know, you heard Scrooge say, if a man changes his course, it will change his ends. But the Bible says, you know, it's by grace that we're saved through faith. And that's a gift of God. It's not of works. I mean, you can love Christmas. You can love every holiday. You can be a person of charity and generosity to your, you know, more than anybody else. And you still can't pay the debt that your sin has created against the court of heaven. So what Amy Caldwell did, and maybe you heard it, Chloe looks at Nash and says, you know, it's the man God has made you to be. That's the key right there. It's not some dead spirit. It's the Holy Spirit who can come into your life like he's come into ours and change our attitude towards him and really bring about faith that saves. And that's what grace... Why, thank you. That's why Grace Theater exists. Here at Grace Baptist, we love the arts. We think we should do all of these kinds of things to allow these fine people to have a way to serve. But the ultimate reason is we want to give all glory to God. We exist to make and multiply Christ followers who magnify the glory of God. And because this is closing night, I'm going to turn it over to our producer, Monique Newman. She has a few things that she wants to say.
Thank you, David.
I'm fine.
He forgot to say we have some Christmas concerts coming up in the very beginning of December, 8th, 9th, and 10th. So those have free tickets. But I'm here to say that the man that you would recognize as our talented announcer and as Scrooge is a multi-talented actor, and you have witnessed a marvel tonight as he has entered into an exclusive company of amazing actors like Charlie Chaplin, Orson Welles, Barbra Streisand, Mel Gibson, and Woody Allen. Do you know what they have in common? They're actors who have also starred in films that they've directed. Well, Mark has been an actor who's been able to direct for the first time on the stage. And we are so grateful. Grace Theater offered him the position of director, and then at the auditions it was very clear to our cabinet that he should also be Scrooge, and we are indebted to you, Mark. As I also want to tell you that it takes a great company behind the scenes as well as our talented actors on the stage. Oh, you're here. Yay! I also want to invite our lighting team and sound. Come on up. I know they're shy in the back. But it really does. From costumes, hair and makeup, publicity, lighting and sound. You know, it takes so many gifted people to make this happen, but Mark, as the director, has been the captain at the helm. He's led with wisdom, and he's shared many insights into this craft with his fellow actors. He's collaborated well on so many artistic and technical details with this production team, including his assistant director, Andrea Rodriguez, and production manager, Carol Scholl, who's been calling the show tonight. So working with actors, musicians, and tech, and in so many ways, he's also been a spiritual nurturer to the cast and crew, sharing lessons and encouragement that he's been experiencing in his relationship with God. I want to note, Mark, that the measure of a good leader is one who brings out the best in those they lead, and you have been that with excellence in your first time as a director. So on behalf of your cast and crew who loves you, thank you, Mark. You've been a blessing to us.
Thank you. I'm humbled by that. And I just want to say that it's unfair to call Andrea Rodriguez a assistant director. She really co-directed this. Once it became clear that I had to spend some time on stage, Andrea stepped in and took over and basically directed that second half of our rehearsals. I also benefited greatly from the wisdom of directors that we have in our company, specifically James Phillips and Carol Scholl, who have both directed. James directed Fools, Carol directed The God Committee, the very first production that I was honored to be in, and I had no idea it was her first time directing. She impressed me so much. Along with Monique, who has wonderful ideas, and every single person that you see here contributed some of the most amazing and wonderful moments that you see on stage, all of the little details that really made this experience hopefully a great one for you all. So we all thank you very much, and God bless you for coming. Merry Christmas.
We hope you enjoyed the show. To stay up with what Grace Theater is doing next, follow us on Instagram at Grace Theater SCV. That's THEATRE. Or check out our webpage at gracebaptist.org/theater. This production is copyright 2023 by Grace Theater and may be used with permission.